You know how everyone has that one fantasy series that they won't shut up about? Well, today I'm here to make sure that you have 8 of them. These are epic page-turning adult fantasy series that you are, let's be honest, probably missing out on. Hello everyone, my name is Holly and welcome to another video. I have created a really great list of 8 adult fantasy series that I think are underrated. Most of the series that I'm talking about today are already in progress or about to wrap up, so you can binge them now without that agonizing multi-year wait between books, and a couple are brand new series that you can hop into early, which means you get to suffer right alongside me for the next release. These are books that had me up until 2 a.m. muttering just one more chapter, and I'm super excited to talk about them today. But before we dive into this list, I want to thank today's sponsor, BetterHelp. You know, a lot of people tend to say the summer months are the happier months for them. I'm kind of the opposite. I am much happier during fall and winter, the cozy months. Even though they are filled with holidays, I actually feel less pressure and stress. So it goes to say the stress and bouts of sadness are very much still here, with it being August. So if you're like me, it's really good to check in with your mental health. Therapy has given me a solid safe space to unpack thoughts, and lo and behold, talking to a non-biased third party like BetterHelp is top tier coming from personal experience. BetterHelp's whole mission is to make the process of therapy as frictionless as possible, and it really is. You just go and fill out a questionnaire and you are matched with a therapist. A therapist will listen, they'll ask questions, they'll help you see things from a new perspective. They can give you the advice, tools, and techniques that can really help make a positive change in your life. And BetterHelp knows how important that bond is between you and your therapist. So for whatever reason, if you feel the therapist you're matched with isn't the right fit, they make it free and easy to switch at any time. So if you're thinking about giving therapy a shot, BetterHelp is a great one to try. Go ahead and click the link in my description box below, or go to betterhelp.com/hollyheartsbooks and get 10% off your very first month of therapy. Alrighty, let's go ahead and start with a book that came out recently and has been getting a lot of buzz in the book world and has been on a lot of people's best books of the first half of 2025 lists, and I have to agree with them. The Raven Scholar. This is the first book in an adult fantasy trilogy called Eternal Path, and wow, it really scratched that itch for a big, dense, well-built fantasy world that you can sink your teeth into. Well, your eyes technically. You can sink your eyes into. So here's the setup. It's a murder mystery wrapped in a fantasy setting with plenty of delicious bait and switch moments. In fact, the first one hits you right away. You're in one character's POV, all settled in, and then they vanish. And suddenly we're 8 years in the future with the real main story kicking off. Don't worry, that's not a spoiler. It happens at the very, 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 very beginning, and I was instantly hooked. So we have our main character, Nima, who is tasked with investigating the murder of her contingent's contender for the Emperor's throne. The tone is exactly what I want from an adult fantasy. Gritty when it needs to be, but also laced with all sorts of sarcasm. It's gotta be funny sometimes, you know? Like, give me brutality with some sense of humor. Plus, we've got an actual adult main character with life experience and a position of authority, not just like a just turned 18 and suddenly I'm running kingdoms situation. World building wise, this book nails it. You really get a sense of the Guardians' history, folklore, and the way they fit into the culture. And even though this is a hefty read, we're talking about like 700 pages, I was never bored. Even the pacing for this is surprisingly brisk, with it being a freaking brick of a book. The politics are perfect. They're tangled, believable, and full of tension thanks to everyone's like complicated past and messy present situations. And the writing itself, it's sharp, it's witty. If you want a chunky fantasy with intrigue, politics, mystery, and some really clever magic concepts, The Raven Scholar absolutely delivers. And now we just have to wait for book 2. Let's talk about another new fantasy series that was given to us recently, A Song of Legends Lost. The first book to the Invoker trilogy. It just released in June. So I knew I was going to enjoy this book because the author posts a lot of comparisons to Final Fantasy. She has posted pictures of Yuna from Final Fantasy X and Sephiroth from Final Fantasy VII, which are like the keys to my heart for book comparisons. And I have to agree, that matches up perfectly for this. Now, I usually try to give a brief synopsis in my reviews that don't spoil anything, but that's kind of a challenge with this book. So bear with me as I try to give you a very simplified version. There's a lot of moving parts here, and the author even has a clan list of characters if you need help keeping track. So the story starts in a world, where only people of noble blood can summon the spirit of their ancestors to fight. And we're introduced to a few characters that follow their own journey and start uncovering secrets about the ancestor realm, humanity's forgotten history, and their enemy. It quickly becomes clear that there's more to this magic than meets the eye. I think the author did an amazing job with this epic fantasy. It's her debut novel, which is crazy because it's just perfect. It actually reminded me of Black Panther, so maybe Black Panther meets Final Fantasy. I don't know, that's a weird combo, but it works. The blend of magic, mythology, and technology all wrapped up into this plot of political intrigue. If you are like me and you love epic fantasy stories that you can really get invested in, but maybe you're kind of burnt out on like the traditional fantasy stories, definitely give this one a try. It feels so unique and different, and I need the next book as soon as possible. I have one more book here that is the start to a brand new series before we get into like the bigger series recommendations, and this one just released this month. It's available now, and it was one of my most anticipated releases of the year, and that was The Bone Raiders. This book kept promoting giant fire-breathing lizards, and oh yes, not a single disappointed sigh in the room. The characters literally ride them into battle, and it's great. So The Bone Raiders gives us not one, not two, but three absolute powerhouse women leading the charge, each with their own storyline that weaves together into something seriously so addictive. It is set in this Khan-inspired world, which made the giant dragon lizards make sense, and you know, this is my weakness. They are basically animal companions, but not like the cutesy, overly humanized ones. These creatures are fierce and dangerous and wild, and the bond between them and the characters feels earned. It adds so much to the world building without ever feeling cheesy. A really good comparison for the characters and the lizard companions is We Ride the Storm by Devin Madsen, the raiders in that book, and their horses. It's a very similar relationship and respect. So if you like your fantasy high stakes, but still accessible, and you want characters that stick with you long after you close the book, The Bone Raiders is definitely worth picking up. I'm going to end it there because this book literally just released this week at the time of I'm filming this, so no more from me. Okay, let's move on to series that have multiple books out, and the first one is Tyrant Philosophers. Now Adrian, mostly known for his amazing sci-fi, Children of Time, The Final Architecture, he's written plenty in that genre. He does have a still currently running fantasy series, and I am saying series with quotation marks because these are technically interconnected standalones, so do keep that in mind. I believe there will be a total of 5 books, books 1 through 4, and the 4th book is planned to release in 2026, and there is a novella that goes between books 1 and 3, so it's like 2.5, and that one is releasing in October. So it's the perfect time to jump into these, and they are great. The first book in the series, The City of Last Chances, explores how a city under the occupation of this mighty empire lives and rebels against it. The next book, House of Open Wounds, which was even better in my opinion, follows the Butcher, who is a medical figure of sorts, and his team of misfits as they mend broken people through the war. Days of Shattered Faith goes to the very beginning, kind of like a prequel showing how that empire manipulates and influences the local politics of a kingdom they intend to take over and perfect it, like destroying local religious beliefs, transforming local gods and related artifacts, even brainwashing people into certain philosophy. So yes, this series hits very close to home, which is unfortunate. So you won't be escaping reality too much if you jump into these. So the stories here are told from multiple different perspectives, but there is a centerpiece character named Gil, and her role is to observe, but she goes beyond it by immersing herself in the local culture. I highly recommend this series if you want a deep cutting fantasy story. Definitely give these a try. Yes, the story has extremely similar lines to how the world is today, but there's still more hope here, which is kind of sad to say. Bonus though are the covers. I don't own physical copies of these, though I wish I did, because these are some of my favorite covers of all time. Next up is the Eden series by Justin Lee Anderson. I might be saying that wrong. It might be Iden. I'm still unsure. Anyways, so you know how most epic fantasy start either before or during a big war, with armies clashing, chosen ones questing and all that good stuff. Well, the Eden Saga, I'm gonna say Eden, the Eden Saga said, now let's see what happens after the dust settles. And honestly, it's brilliant. It's kind of rare for epic fantasies to be set in a world after the war is over and the people are recovering, and the series takes such a stark and realistic look at what that would be like. Honestly, at this point, I know quite a few books that do this, and I should make a whole video about it, because there's another one that I'll be talking about later on in this video with the exact same premise. So there's a plague spreading across the land, mercenaries attack anyone in their path, and even demons continue to ravage the farmlands and destroy food supplies. So yes, it does feature a unique take on zombies, and book 1 has one of the best twist endings ever, and honestly, it had me wanting to go straight back to the beginning to read it all again, which I am currently doing because the 3rd book is coming out this month. I do believe there will be a 4th book total. It is called Saga and not a trilogy, so it makes sense. So another great series to jump into right now. It's such a fast-paced and action-packed series. There's a lot of changing relationships and morally great characters still emerging even in book 2. The first 2 books were page turners, and I know book 3 will be as well. Speaking of series that has a very similar premise, and that is Lands of the Firstborn. So if you are a fan of the Lord of the Rings and Dungeons and Dragons, then you definitely want to read this. This is like if you took those 2 and they had a baby. So there are currently 3 books out for this one, and I believe that is it. I believe it is just a trilogy, so it is completed. It's another series, again, that focuses on what happens after the big battle. The series overall follows that very like reluctant hero trope that I love. The main character, Elfric, isn't your like typical fantasy fresh-faced protagonist. He is old, wary, beaten down by the years, and having to live with his reputation and the burden of responsibility that lasted even after he and his companions defeated the Dark Lord. And they are now tasked with looking after a powerful sentient sword, and there might be a new evil on the horizon. It's really a breath of fresh air to get this like cynical sort of perspective on epic fantasy that goes beyond what you'd assume a sword and sorcery type novel would deliver. And even with the Lord of the Rings and D&D comparison, it's still fresh and unique. The world building is really interesting, and I feel like there's so much to uncover in this world. I feel like this is one of those series, if you reread it, you would find so many new things. Like I said, it is a completed trilogy, and it's best to go in blind. So I'm gonna end it there. I have 2 more series here to recommend you, and the next one is Age of Wrath. So book 1 being A Tide of Black Steel. This is a grimdark Norse-inspired fantasy following 5 characters through a perilous journey, and book 2 comes out this month. I really feel like this series isn't getting the love it deserves, or even like the promotion it deserves. I'm barely seeing it anywhere, so I'm glad to be talking about it today. Now, this does take place within the same universe as Anthony Ryan's previous series called The Covenant. First book being The Pariah. You don't have to have read that. Do I recommend it? Yeah, absolutely. And I know that's really annoying to hear, but with any famous author like Anthony Ryan, you're not going to be disappointed. This just means you have so much amazing material to look forward to. But people who jumped into this first had no issues with the world or its characters. So don't be intimidated. You can go into this first if you want to. It's Vikings led with seafaring action scenes. There's treasure hunts, new foes, a struggle for survival. It really is an epic story. Okay, and last but certainly not least is the Level Unknown series. So David Daglish is an author I will always be shouting from the rooftops about until the end of his career, which, for the good of this world, let's hope that's not until he's like 70. Retirement be damned. So underrated as a storyteller. He's written so many books that he should have his own table at Barnes & Noble at this point, and I have read almost all of them. He took a leap of faith, all Assassin's Creed-like, earlier this year with the release of a lit RPG series, and I feel like the term lit RPG scares a lot of people, but trust me, it's just a really cool scripted out fantasy / sci-fi book. Anyways, book 2 to this series released in May, and book 3 will be released later this year. I'm sure the cover for that will be revealed soon, and I'm super pumped about it. So Level Unknown book 1 starts off in the future on another planet, and the discovery of an artifact takes Nick, our young protagonist, into this game where he must learn the rules quickly or keep dying. If you have never read a lit RPG novel before, I highly recommend starting with this one. Alrighty everyone, so that's my list. 8 adult fantasy series that deserve way more hype than they're getting. Now I want to hear from you. you. Which of these are you adding to your TBR? And what's your ride or die fantasy series that I need to pick up next? Drop it in the comments below so we can all enable each other's book buying habits. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and hit that like button. It really helps the channel out. And don't forget to subscribe for more fantasy, sci-fi, and horror book recommendations. And we have a lot more epic reads coming your way. And thanks again, BetterHelp, for sponsoring today's video. Again, click that link down below for 10% off your very first month of therapy. So until we meet again, happy reading.